people? Today I want to talk about being in the zone, being in the flow, not trying to force things, but rather letting things happen. I'm sure as a creative musician you have been in this situation before, that you kind of want to create a riff, and the more you try, the harder you try, the less it feels good. It feels more stiff, it feels unorganic, it sounds and feels like it's just this generic piece of music that doesn't have that groove, that just, it doesn't feel good. It feels like you were trying too hard. Try this. Go out, drop your guitar, or whatever instrument you are playing, take a walk, relax, do something completely different, play a video game if you want. Then, after half an hour, come back, pick up the guitar, put on a drum beat or something, and just let it flow. Let the music come out. And you might find that all of a sudden, because you started relaxing, a great riff is gonna start emerging from your fingers without you even really trying that hard or trying at all to make up a good riff. This is the concept of being in the flow, being in the zone. It applies not only to music, it applies to all athletes, to all sports. It even applies to life in general. It applies to your posture. You don't want your posture to be this stiff kind of thing. You want it to feel natural, and you want to have a tall and straight posture, of course, but it should come by itself, should become naturally. Same thing with pro athletes. They want to be in the zone, in the flow, and of course, musicians, for me, kind of are like athletes in a certain way. And of course, musicians we need to be in the flow, to be creative, to perform, and even to have good technique. Let's take a look at these three aspects of being in the zone, being in the flow. Let's start with the technique aspect. We can take a look at the right hand and the left hand, and we will find that in both cases we can apply this attitude of letting happen instead of that attitude of forcing it to be. Let's start with the left hand. If I say to myself, when I'm fretting something, like let's say I'm going to take any fret, it really does not matter. This could and this is not really an exercise. This is a concept you should apply to all of your playing. But you can start, if you're new to guitar, you can start by making this an exercise. You would just take any fret. Now, instead of having the attitude and having the thinking, I'm going to push down on that fret like this in order to achieve that note, like that E, for example, right here. My new attitude is going to be of letting it happen. There's this natural reflex of grabbing things. All babies have that. It's actually in our DNA. If there's a hand naturally wants to close, if I just let my hand relax, it's going to go into this position. It's not like this. So I'm going to use this reflex and just let it happen. I'm just going to let my left hand fret. It's a totally different attitude now. Now there's absolute relaxation in my left hand, in my left shoulder, even in my left spine. Because I changed the mental aspect of how I grab, how I fret a string with my left hand. Now I can refine this thing, I can now go ahead and say, okay, how hard do I really need to push down on a certain fret? Like obviously this. would be not hard enough. Now I'm letting my hand push. And here we go, and that's all I need. It doesn't have to be like if I keep going. First of all, the intonation of that note. Hear that? If I push really hard, the intonation changes on that note. I don't want that. I mean, I could use that as an effect. But generally, why should I want to lose energy and put more effort into it? Actually, I don't want it to be any effort, right? That was what I was talking about. Same thing goes with the right hand. It doesn't matter if you're using a pick or not. Let's say your finger style. There's a born reflex in your hand to do this. When picking finger style, change your mentality. Say to yourself, I want to let my right finger, my index finger, for example. Of course, you're gonna do this with all fingers. I'm gonna let it snap. I'm gonna let it snap in order for me to pluck those strings. That does not mean that I lose intensity. Of course, I can be musical and all that, and I want to be musical, of course. I want to change my tone and my attitude. Playing from soft. Now, what about the concept of being in flow and being in the moment, letting things happen when it comes to being creative? I've always noticed for myself, this is an experience that maybe actually I've talked with another musician about this, and he made that same experience, and that is when I go and give lessons to my students, that's when I have the best ideas. It's in between those lessons when I still have my instrument in my hand and my fingers are doing, their thing. And mentally, I'm still maybe with that last student, or I'm thinking about the next student, or maybe I'm thinking about something completely else, like, maybe I should get some lunch. In those moments, there seems to happen the greatest riff emerge from my fingers. For me at least, that's what I feel. But of course, there's tricks that we can work with. We can put on a drum beat, just a groove that we really like to work with, and then try to apply that same thing. Like, not try to make up a riff. Just have fun with that drum beat and just play to it. Have fun. See what happens. If there's a great riff happening, cool. And if not, maybe the next day. We can't force it. We can't force a cool idea to happen. Either it happens or it doesn't happen. But the thing is, and this is the paradox, the more we let go and not try to make that thing come up, the more it is going to come up, because we're in a more relaxed state. That's at least what I think. And of course, coming to performance, there is great artists that we can study and look at. Starting with Jimi Hendrix, one of the greatest guitar players considered out there in the rock world. In the beginning, I've always wondered, like, what is it about Jimi Hendrix? Like, he wasn't like the most virtuose player. There was guys like Eddie Van Halen and Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai. Those were the guitar players when I was a teenager that I really was like, whoa, they can play so fast and so fluid and all this legato and speed picking stuff. Jimi Hendrix couldn't do that. He didn't do anything like that. He played pretty down to the ground, pentatonic and blues scales. So at that time I always wondered, like, what's it about? And much later I realized, man, that Jimi Hendrix, he's just in the zone all of the time. He's such a great player, and that's the reason why. Like, it's just flowing out of him. He's so relaxed. Look at his performance when he's playing. Like it seems like every muscle fiber on him is absolutely in tune with his guitar. It's like one thing. We have other players that are exactly like that. Jeff Beck is another one that comes to my mind that I really enjoy listening to, and it seems same thing with him, that he's just in the zone start to finish when he's doing a performance. Put some more guitar players that you think are really like those kind of players that are always in the zone, or most of the time at least. Put it in the comment box below what you can think of. Yeah, people, this was more like a kind of philosophical kind of topic today, but I think it's a really important topic because it's not, a lot of people think that this kind of playing is something you're either born with, so you have it, or you don't have it, and I don't think that's true. At the same time, I want to say that I don't think you can like. You can't make an exercise out of it, because making an exercise would imply that you're working for it. But you can cultivate that kind of mindset, starting with that technique, starting with when you're trying to be creative, or when you're being creative and making your own music, improvising or songwriting, whatever, making arrangements for your band, and on playing live on a stage or even in front of a camera. You want to be in the zone. So you want to calm down your nervous system as much as possible. And there's different techniques of how you can achieve that. Breath work, breathing, concentrating on your breath while you're doing the performance. Not overthinking what you're playing, but just, trying to let it happen. Beforehand, having something practiced, you have to practice this so much that the technique has got to be down. You don't want to, if you have to think about what you're playing because your technique isn't studied in correctly, then you have no chance of doing this. So the first fundamental thing is, of course, practicing 10,000 times until you don't have to think about it, and then stop thinking about it. There's one more story that I want to share. When I was studying music, there was this girl who was always together with me in those session rooms where the guys who studied could go in and just practice, practicing rooms basically. And we had to share these rooms. So on a certain day, I came in. I wanted to practice in one of those rooms, and that girl was inside playing cello, and I saw that on her desk were not the sheet music that she was supposed to practice, but there was a book, just I don't know which one, but just a book, just a fiction book, and she was reading that while she was practicing. At that moment, I thought, oh my God, is she so demotivated that she, she's not even paying attention to what she's practicing? Oh my God, this is not gonna go well for her. Guess what? Her diploma was the best. She played the best diploma in that year of all the students. The thing that she was practicing, and I didn't understand that at that moment, but later on I did, is she was training herself to play. She could already play her pieces. That wasn't a problem. Now she was practicing to play them while she was thinking about something completely different. Because that always happens when you play live, right? When you play live, you look at some guy in the audience that's, maybe you think he's looking strange at you. Of course he's not. Or there's this girl, and it grabs your attention for a brief moment. You stop thinking about what you're playing. But now you've never practiced that before. You've always practiced, okay, I have to think about what I'm playing or else I can't do it. Guess what? You're gonna get a blackout at that moment. At least that's my experience. So, you know, practice not thinking about stuff is another way of getting in that flow. Just wanted to share that little story. People, hope you liked this little philosophical video. If you want to have me do more of this kind, more talking stuff, just sharing experience that I've made as a musician, put it in the comments below. I would really appreciate you subscribing to my channel, putting a thumbs up, putting some comments down there. You can support me as a musician by going to my Patreon. I want to put up a PayPal link where, you know, like something like a tip or something. And of course you can go to my band, Wolf Spirit, check out my band, see what I have done in the last, oh god, almost 15 years with my band now. We've created a bunch of albums. If you like that, check it out. Consider supporting me in one way or another. And besides that, thanks for sticking out to the end of the video, and see you in the next one.